This is the Planning Advisory and Adjustment Committee for the City of Pembroke on Wednesday, April 29th at 4:30. I'm going to turn the meeting over now to our chairman, to Chairman Romeo Levasseur.
Thank you very much, Colleen, and welcome one and all to what is certainly a first for us, the first virtual meeting for the Planning Advisory and Adjustment Committee. And we certainly welcome all of the viewers who may be watching this at this particular time live or in the future. Just to give you a little bit of a background, the Planning Advisory and Adjustment Committee is a committee that's struck by City Council, and they get individuals with certain interests and certain skills in the areas of planning and adjustment. And as a result, we are tasked with providing advice. The key word here is advisory, and we are tasked with providing counsel and advice to City Council, who in turn then make the final decision for any matter that may come before us. Now, mind you, usually it's referred back to council for zoning bylaw amendments and a few other key things. But if it's just a minor variance application, then the decision that's done at this particular level is the final one, unless it gets appealed a bit later on. So this evening or this afternoon, we are going to be dealing with 6 applications, 5 of which are zoning application amendments and 1 minor variance application. So before we get going, I'd like to introduce the members of the advisory committee. First of all, Councillor Christine Reevy, who is our contact with the council, and of course, it sits on this committee. And then we've got Ms. Tanya Stewart, another member, one with, this is our second or third term, I think, as a member, and certainly pleased to have her point of view on various issues. And of course, a newbie to our committee this year is Marie-Josée Leveille, and we are really pleased to have Marie here, along with her extensive background, to provide the expertise that's needed. Sending his regrets is Vice Chair Bob Hughes, who was not able to be with us on this day. I'm Romeo Levasseur. I'm chair of the committee, and have been involved with planning within the city, I guess, for a good 35 years. So it's always I always enjoy being this part of of community involvement, and so those are the people that are going to be doing the voting. Of course, we have our 2 professionals, Owen Hutton, who is a planning practitioner, I guess, and Owen, who's been with the city for a few years and has certainly been doing a yeoman's job, especially on this particular thing when we're dealing with this virtual meeting. And then, of course, Colleen Sorio, who is the manager of planning and building departments. Okay, I'll now call the meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. You've all received a copy of the agenda, or you'll have it before you. Are there any items that should be changed or removed, or any comments on the order of the agenda? Tanya? No. Marie-Josée? And no. Councillor Christine? No. So the agenda then, I'll be looking for the approval of the agenda, looking for a person to move the approval. Tanya, moved by Tanya, and seconded by Councillor Chris. All in favor, indicate with a handshake. Very good. Did you get that, Owen? Good. Okay, the next item is the approval of the minutes. We didn't have a meeting in the month of March for obvious reasons. Not that there weren't any applications, but because of the COVID-19, we had to certainly do things a little differently. And that's just why we've got a fairly packed agenda today. But we did have a meeting on Wednesday, February the 19th. You all received a copy of these minutes. Were there any errors or omissions? Okay, hearing none or seeing none. There is one item, Colleen. It did say that the next meeting was going to be held on Wednesday, March 25th. I guess that should that be struck or just change to April 29th? At the bottom of the second page.
No, that's fine. We'll just leave it as is.
Okay. All right, looking for a mover to accept the minutes, Councillor Christine. So looking for a seconder, Marie-Josée, seconded. Any further questions? No, all in favor? Hands up, Marie?
Yeah, I
Yes.
was absent at the meeting, so I can't actually approve the minutes for that meeting.
Okay, so good enough. So then we'll have to change the seconder to Tanya.
Yes.
Good, thanks for bringing that up. Okay, all in favor of the minutes of the last meeting, and I will agree to it in order to give it a quorum. All right, now, the next item is, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interests and general nature thereof on any of the items?
Yes, I have 3.
You have 3, and what would they be?
Item D, 102 Deacon Street.
Yes,
E, 1064 Pembroke Street West.
which one?
E,
E?
10, E,
Okay, yes, got it.
1064 Pembroke Street West.
Yes,
And F, 304 Mackenzie Street.
okay. All right, and let the minutes show that Board Member Tanya declared a conflict of interest on items 5B, 5E, and 5F. Any other conflicts? Okay, seeing none, we'll carry on then with the first item on the agenda. And this item has to do with the property on 840 and 818 Pembroke Street West. I believe Mr. Sylvester is present. And this is a zoning bylaw amendment application and consent to sever, which means that there are 2 items here that are going to be involved. Okay, what I'll ask is, I'll ask the planner then to introduce the application.
Okay, and before I introduce the application, I would just like it for the people that have been given notices that they are permitted to phone in 613-735-6821, extension 1307, if there's any issues or concerns about this application. Just before I start, we didn't receive any written submissions or any phone calls in regards to this rezoning and this severance application. So there's been an application to rezone 840 Pembroke Street West, as well as a severance application has been received from 818 Pembroke Street West to become a lot addition to 840 Pembroke Street West. The rezoning is to permit the existing kitchen and bath business, Peter E. Sylvester Kitchen and Bath, establishment at 840 Pembroke Street East. Presently, the existing building accommodates a retail showroom space with an attached workshop and warehouse, as well as 1 apartment unit. The applicant would like to sever a piece of land from the next door piece, which they own as well, 818 Pembroke Street West, to become a lot addition to 840 Pembroke Street West. This lot addition presently accommodates parking for the retail business. The applicant would like to sever this piece of land and add it to the business. Presently, the property is zoned R2, and they would like to zone it to a highway commercial -37 zone to allow for the existing kitchen and bath shop. The present zoning R2 does not permit a service industry such as a builder's supply center. The proposed severance would remove a piece of land approximately 3,422 square feet from 818 Pembroke Street West and add it to 840 Pembroke Street West. The properties municipally known as 818 and 840 are owned by the applicants. They want to legalize the parking lot, and to do this, they needed a rezoning and a severance application. The removal of the land from 818 Pembroke Street West does not affect this property. It meets the lot area, lot frontage, lot depth, and side yard requirements. And further, this severance is a lot addition and will not require the 5% parkland dedication fee. The official plan is highway commercial, so the rezoning would meet the intent of the official plan. This use has existed at this location for more than 40 years, and thus the present use of the property is considered legal nonconforming. The applicant is considering removing the residential apartment unit that's at 840 Pembroke Street West and would like to add an addition to the front of the building for a greater showroom and workspace area. According to the attached plan, the areas at 840 Pembroke Street West that require relief are lot frontage, front yard depth, interior side yard, east and west side, the side yard for the garage, and side yard for the shed. Further, buffer strips are required, but they were never there. There is a buffer strip at the rear of the property, but along the eastern and western interior side yards, there is no buffer. So nothing would change with the building except for possibly an addition at the front of the building for, like I said, for greater showroom area. The parking required for the warehouse, for the showroom, is 14.65 spaces, and the site plan illustrates 16 parking spaces. Therefore, the parking requirements are met. The zoning bylaw requires 10% landscaped open area for the lot, and this would require relief as there is little grassed area except for the rear of the property. The property is serviced by municipal water and sanitary sewer, and it meets the intent of the provincial policy statement. So the planning department is recommending the approval of this rezoning and of this severance, subject to 3 conditions. That would be that a registered plan of survey is provided, that the property is rezoned from R2 to C2-37 for the severance, and that there be a legal undertaking from a solicitor stating this severance will become a lot addition to 840 Pembroke Street West.
Very good. Mr. Sylvester, have you got anything that you'd like to add to the explanation that's been received?
Hello. No, I think Colleen covered everything. I don't have anything to add.
Okay. There was one little area that I just want to touch on, have to be the buffer strips along the interior lot lines. Obviously, there's going to be relief there, Colleen.
Yes, relief would be required. And the one on the east side is owned by the property is owned by the Sylvesters. And I believe the property on the west side as well is owned by the Sylvesters.
Good. Obviously, we're not in council, so there's no interested parties who would like to comment one way or the other. So I'll go on to the members of the board, starting with you, Councillor Christine. Any comments, questions?
Thank you. I just have one curiosity with these proposed 16 parking spaces. Under the AODA, do any of those or a percentage of those parking spaces need to be handicapped? And if so, is that going to be looked at? Is it already in effect?
Mr. Sylvester?
When I spoke with Colleen, originally we didn't discuss handicap parking. At the time being, really what we're looking to do, first of all, is have the piece of property severed, which will have there will be no changes to the existing parking. Basically, the existing parking it's used for 840 Pembroke Street West, is actually on 818 Pembroke Street West property. So at this point in time, it's really just a matter of, creating the correct property line to accommodate that parking. If it comes down to, or when it comes down to the time that we decide to, remove the apartment, potentially add an addition, we'd be willing to adjust our parking however required in order to meet handicap parking and so on.
Thank you very much. Anything to add to that, Colleen?
Yes, so Mr. Sylvester is correct. There's no change at this point, but if he decides to put the addition on to the front of the building, then there will be a site plan agreement required. And at that point, that would require, based on the number of parking spaces, one accessible parking space would be required.
Okay, thank you very much. Does that meet with your satisfaction, Councillor? Yeah, okay. Yes. All right. Board Member Tanya, any questions, comments?
Nope, no questions.
Marie-Josée Leveille?
Yes, thank you. I am curious as to the rationale for the rezoning and this application at this time, because obviously these two pieces of land have been used in this manner for an extensive period. So that was my first question. And the second one was with regards to parking at 118 Pembroke Street West. So with the severance, will there still be residential parking at this property?
Colleen, you want to answer that?
Sure, or Andrew, it's up to you.
Yeah, so this severance will not have any effect on the parking at 818 Pembroke Street West. That's the residential property.
Mhm.
The parking, the existing parking for 818 Pembroke Street West is kind of on the opposite side of the property compared to this severance. So there's no impact on 818 parking.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And
Any
I think
final
maybe,
comments, Colleen from the planner?
sure. And to answer your first question, it was there may be the possibility that just they would like to have the parking on 840. Right now, the parking that's at the front of the building is at the house, is on the house property at 818. So they just wanted to legalize that in case in the future they ever maybe wanted to sell the house or whatever, then that parking is now on 840 Pembroke Street West's property instead of on 818.
Thank you.
And maybe just one thing to add to that. So you almost need to see the existing property and see where the existing property line is to understand this application. This building, the shop at 840 Pembroke Street West, was built so many years ago. And at the time, basically, given the property line and the entrance to the driveway, it essentially was a laneway to the extent that you couldn't even turn a vehicle around in that parking lot. And obviously now, so many years later, with Pembroke Street being so much more busy, that's just obviously doesn't work. So at some point in time, the parking lot was extended onto 818 Pembroke Street West property, which is Jeff, the business owner. So it's just, he would not be able to sell his personal home with the parking lot as it stands. So essentially, it's just we're trying to think forward, first of all, that we can get this application in and have the property line changed. So when the day comes, we're not trying to deal with it at that point in time.
Good. Thank you very much. I guess at this particular time, I'd like to ask for a member of the board to present a motion, either appealing or disagreeing or accepting the recommendation from our planner. Moved by Councillor Christine Reevy. We will be seconded by board member Marie-Josée Leveille. If there's no further comments, I will go to each one of you and you'll have to indicate, because we have to take a vote on this one. Okay, we'll start off with Tanya. Nay or yay?
Yay.
Yay. Marie-Josée?
Yay.
Councillor Christine?
Yay.
Yay. And there's no need for me to vote, but I will vote in the affirmative on this particular motion. So, Mr. Sylvester, as you've heard, the motion has been accepted. The recommendation has been accepted. But now, because this is involving a zone amendment, it will go before City Council on May 5th at 6 o'clock. You may wish to be there. City Councillor Christine Reevy will be presenting the application at City Council, and some councillors may have some questions that they may wish to pursue. After that, once the decision's been made one way or the other, there is a 15-day period that you should get a decision via the mail, and there is an appeal period, but there are changes to that appeal period And maybe I could ask our planner to review that because that's going to involve each one of the applications tonight.
Okay, so the Planning Act has been amended during this COVID emergency. The decisions still are the same as usual. If a decision is made after April 15th, it's business as usual. So we will be providing the decision within 15 days, and then there will be a 20-day appeal period. However, the LPAT, which is the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, they are not sitting at this point during the emergency. So if there is an appeal, we would not be able to send in the appeal at this time until the LPAT is back in their office and working with the appeals.
Colleen, what effect will that have on the applicant in wanting to begin the work on that he is proposing?
Well, if it requires a building permit, then they will not be able to get a permit unless it's considered essential, but that's very limited. It's mostly roads and bridges and things like that that are considered essential. So if you're wanting a building permit until the emergency or is let go, or until the province opens it up to allow construction again, a building permit cannot be issued. A building permit can be issued, but you can't work on the property until the province allows us to do so.
Any questions on that, Mr. Sylvester?
No, I think that's everything.
Yeah, I think the safe thing is I'm sure that the planning department will be always open, be in touch with you, or you can call them at any time for any further information. Okay, thank you very much. I noted in the notes that you've been in business in the family over 40 years in that particular location. And that's kind of interesting. Just a little bit of a sidebar. When my family moved from Montreal, I was 5 years old, and we moved to a house on Patterson Street across from that. So actually, that's been in your family for over 75 years. And so it's nice to see that generations upon generations are continuing.
Yes, actually, I'm really the fourth generation myself. The actual legal name for the business now is Peter E. Sylvester, 1933. So it's been in the family for many, many years.
Good. Well, thank you very much for your application. And as I said, the City Council will be taking it up at its meeting on May 5th. Okay, thank you. This ends the first application. We'll now go on to the second application while I get my paper in order here. Second application has to do with Mr. Ross Rowe. Again, it is a zoning bylaw amendment application at 813 Pembroke Street East. And I will ask the planner to present the application.
Okay, so we've received an application for, before I start, I should say again that I will give the phone number if there's anyone that's received notice that wishes to call in. It's 613-735-6821, extension 1307, if they have any comments. An application for rezoning for the commercial establishment at 813 Pembroke Street East was received to permit a single detached dwelling house along with other permitted C2 highway commercial uses. The existing building accommodated a hairdressing school, but this use had ended about 3 years ago, and the building has remained vacant since that time. The applicant would like to rezone the property to permit a single detached dwelling along with all other C2 uses. There would be no addition to the existing building. The present zoning does not permit a single detached dwelling, but when this building was built, it was built as a single detached dwelling house in 1960 and then was previously rezoned to permit highway commercial uses. The official plan designates the property as highway commercial, and the existing commercial building would be compatible with the existing neighborhood since there's a mixture of commercial uses in this area. Further, a proposed use of a single detached dwelling would be compatible also as it is located within close proximity to residentially zoned land, which is in the back of the property. The zoning bylaw zones the property as C2, which permits a variety of commercial uses, as well as dwelling units above and below the ground floor. This application would permit a residential use on the main floor. The only area that would require relief would be the lot frontage. The lot frontage is required to be 60 feet, but it would be 20 feet, and it's in the form of a right-of-way. A previous minor variance in 2008 approved the relief of the lot frontage, and there is a site plan agreement for this property that was entered into in 2009. The lot frontage has been in the form of a right-of-way for many years, and this is the only access to the property. The right-of-way is the only connection to the property from a public street. The lot area, lot depth, front yard, rear yard, and interior side yard requirements are met, and again, there will be no addition to the existing building. The parking requirements can be met for either a commercial use or a residential use. The property is serviced by municipal water and sanitary sewers, and it also meets the provincial policy statement. So the planning department is recommending the approval of this rezoning application.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rowe, anything to add to the application?
No, I believe Colleen covered everything.
I was over there the other day, not at your place, the spot beside it, and I was wondering, I hope that your right away from the public street is solid, legally solid. Because,
I believe it is.
yeah, that's good, because you could be kind of marooned there, you know? But
You
anyway,
know, it's funny, there's a little road that comes from the back property as well, and I've caught a few locals that might walk their dog or bicycle through there, and I've kind of stopped them and said, you know,
yeah,
this is kind of private property now. So anyway,
good. Well,
You'll
I'll
be-
ask members of the board if they have any questions, starting with Tanya.
No, I think it was previously a residential home for many years when the Frasers lived there. So I think it's just going back to what it was originally when Sunset Nursery was in that area, I believe.
correct.
Marie-Josée, questions?
No.
No? Counselor?
No questions, just happy to see that the property is going to be utilized and
Thank you.
inhabited, I guess is the correct word. So very good,
Okay,
thanks.
very good. Okay, we'll ask a member of the board to move the acceptance of the application as presented by the planner. Moved by Councillor Christine, seconded by Tanya. Okay, I would ask, put the question. In favors, beginning with Marie-Josée, one way or the other.
Aye.
Yes, Tanya
Yes.
and Councillor.
Yes,
Okay, recorded vote shows 3-0. Thank you very much. As you probably heard before, this will, because it's a zoning change or an amendment, actually, it'll be going before City Council. We're an advisory body, so our recommendation will be presented to City Council by Councillor Christine, and that meeting is on May 5th at 6 o'clock. Be a good idea to show up. I don't anticipate any problems with that, but the thing is, we got to go through the process.
Absolutely.
I think that, excuse me, you heard our planner indicate that there is going to be, you'll get a letter within 15 days indicating the decision. There's a 20-day appeal period, but that has been extended. And as our planner indicated, again, once after City Council comes up with its decision, you can always communicate with the planning department, knowing what's going on and so on, what you can do and what you can't do while the moratorium is on building permits.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
This particular application is now completed. And I will now go to C, which is Catherine Street, Fritz and Rosemary Clasey. I hope I pronounced that right. And it's a minor variance. And do we have the individuals online?
Mr. Chairman, they were online, but their bandwidth was low. So they did get off. They've been trying to call, but I'm just going to ask if there's anybody with any concerns to call first. 613-735-6821, extension 1307. And if there's any issues, then we can get them on the phone. There have been there's been no emails or anything in the mail with anybody's concerns about this particular property. There's been no phone calls about this. So I'll go ahead with the report. And if you wish to talk to the applicants, we can phone them, okay? So on July 17th, in 2019, the Planning Advisory and Adjustment Committee approved a minor variance application for 108 Catherine Street. The application requested and received approval for relief from the lot area, lot depth, front yard, and rear yard setbacks to allow a new single detached dwelling house to be built at 108 Catherine. The intention of the owners is to demolish the existing single detached dwelling house and build a new one. The applicants have now received lot information from a surveyor, which has slightly changed the dimensions of the lot. Further, the applicants also want to make some changes to their proposed new house, which would affect the previous minor variance decision. The applicants now are seeking relief still from lot area, lot depth, front yard, and rear yard setbacks, but they're also seeking relief from the projection of a balcony. The official plan designates the property as residential, which this meets the intent of the official plan. The zoning bylaw zones the property as R1, which permits a single detached dwelling house. The zoning bylaw does require a front yard depth of 20 feet, and they're proposing a 12-foot front yard depth. This reduction in front yard depth would not impact parking. The applicants are planning to build an attached garage, and the garage will be set back more than 20 feet so that the required 2 parking spaces can be accommodated. The zoning bylaw requires a rear yard depth of 25 feet, and in this new application, the rear yard has increased from 10.42 feet instead of what they had originally approved of at 9.5 feet. And there is a lot depth of 67 feet, where previously they thought they had a lot depth of 65.5 feet. So we have a little bit more lot depth than we originally had. Then the neighboring property on the west side of 108 Catherine Street is a long lot with an existing house built on the west side of that property. Therefore, the reduced rear yard setback would not impact the neighboring property. The requirement for lot area is 5,000 square feet, and the existing lot area is now 4,053.5 square feet, a little bit more than what was granted relief from the previous application. So the applicants are requesting to add an 8-foot balcony on the side of their house facing the Ottawa River. The zoning bylaw requires a 4-foot setback from the edge of the deck to the property line. The applicants would like to be granted relief from the setback to allow an 8-foot wide balcony with a 1/2 foot setback from the interior lot line. The lot line is not adjacent to a residential lot. It is adjacent to land owned by the County of Renfrew, but is set back from the county, Renfrew County's trail by vegetation, as you can see in your attached aerial photo. So this reduced setback would not impact the trail at all. So based on the above information, the proposed relief is considered minor in nature and compatible with the existing neighborhood and meets the general intent of the zoning bylaw. And it also meets the intent of the official plan as well as the provincial policy statement. So the planning department is recommending its approval.
And as you indicated, Colleen, there were no correspondence one way or the other regarding this application?
No, there was none. And I could ask ask Owen to get the Clacy's on the phone if you would like.
Well, unless one of the board members have a specific question, I don't know if there's any need for it. Tanya?
No, I have no questions.
Marie-Josée?
No questions.
And Councillor Christine? No. So would it be necessary that you've done a pretty good job in presenting your application, and they have been before the board before regarding this property? Do you see a need to contact them?
No, I don't. And they were on the Zoom, but again, with their bandwidth issues, they couldn't be on. So.
Okay, I think that perhaps any board member have a question to Colleen regarding this application?
No.
No? Okay, I think I'm looking for a mover and a seconder to approve this application. Moved by Marie-Josée Levesque, seconded by Tanya. Now we'll have a roll call. Counselor, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, Tanya
Yes.
and Marie-Josée Levesque?
Yes.
Yes. So the application is approved as presented by our planner. And because this is a minor variance, it will not be going to City Council. That decision is final. So we'll be going through the 15 days for within 15 days, they'll get a letter indicating this decision. And then, of course, the planner will be explaining the extension of any appeal period that may exist. So thank you very much. That concludes the third application before us. Okay, the next one is a fourth application which deals with the apartment building on 102 Deacon Street, and it's a zoning bylaw amendment, and the applicant is being presented by her attorney, Blair Jones.
This is one that I have a conflict with,
Okay, please.
so I'll mute myself and refrain.
Okay, so a conflict has been declared by Tanya, and that's so recorded. Okay, then we'll carry on, which means I'll be voting on this particular issue to make it a quorum. Okay, well, I guess we'll begin with the presentation, Colleen.
Okay, again, if there is anyone that received a notice that would like to call in regards to 102 Deacon Street, the number is 613-735-6821, extension 1307. So an application for rezoning has been received for the property municipally known as 102 Deacon Street. The applicant would like to rezone the property from an R2 zone to an R4-1 zone to allow for an existing 5-unit apartment building with a reduced lot frontage, a rear yard, eastern interior side yard, privacy yards, dwelling unit area, and buffer strip. The official plan designates the property as residential, and the zoning bylaw zones the property as R2. The official plan states that medium-density residential uses shall be located in close proximity to schools, parks, and local shopping facilities. The existing apartment building is located close to Champlain Discovery School, Fellows High School, Bishop Smith High School, Kinsman Park, and the city's downtown core. Therefore, this application would meet the intent of the official plan. The present zoning, R2, only permits up to 2 dwelling units. Presently, there is a 5-unit apartment building on the property, and the applicant has stated that this building has been used as a 5-unit apartment building for over 30 years. I believe the applicant is trying to sell the property, and this is why the zoning came to light. The proposed R4-1 zoning would permit the existing apartment building with 5 dwelling units. The property is bounded to the east, west, and south by existing residential units, and it's bounded to the north by institutionally zoned land, which is owned by Care4, the old Grey Sisters convent. In regards to the zoning for an apartment building, the following areas require relief: lot frontage, rear yard setback, interior side yard, privacy setbacks, and western buffer strip, as well as a dwelling unit area. So there, just to note, there is no addition proposed to the building. There is no, the only thing that would be is there would be no change to the building, only to allow the existing 5 units to remain. The zoning bylaw requires 1.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit. So 8 parking spaces are required, and 8 parking spaces are shown on the site plan. The zoning bylaw requires 35% landscaped open space, and it will provide the 35% landscaped open space. The property meets the lot area, front yard depth, and western interior side yard requirements, and it meets the lot area, as I said. The property is serviced by municipal water and sanitary sewer. The provincial policy statement states that an appropriate range and mix of residential uses shall be accommodated for. In this rezoning application, there is a mix of residential uses in the existing neighborhood as well as a park and schools nearby. The provincial policy statement also states that land use patterns within a settlement area shall be based on efficient use where infrastructure and public service facilities are available and avoid the need for unjustified or uneconomical expansion. The building at 102 Deacon Street is an existing 5-unit apartment where water and sanitary services already exist and are connected to the building. There is an emphasis in the provincial policy statement to combining urban growth to urban areas. And the proposed rezoning application is a natural extension of the existing built-up area, and it would be connected, as I said earlier, to water and sewer. It also promotes healthy, livable, and safe community, is accommodated by an appropriate range and mix of residential uses. And planning authorities shall identify and promote opportunities for intensification and redevelopment where this can be accommodated, taking into account existing building stock or areas. So the existing 5-unit apartment building is taking into account existing building stock, and thereby promoting a mix of residential uses in this area. So it would appear that the application meets the intent of the provincial policy statement, and the planning department is recommending its approval. We did, though, receive an email from a neighbor expressing concerns over the rezoning application, and Owen will now read it.
So we received opposition from Brenda and Michael Hewer of 108 Deacon Street. And they initially made contact over the phone and then followed up with this email to be read to the committee. Hi, I will call you tomorrow, but these pics are one of the reasons, along with police being there, young people sleeping and screaming on this side of the building. We always have something going on there. We are in our 60s and we pay our taxes here. I do not want any more buildings made in this apartment. All we do is clean up their garbage off our property, listen to arguing and screaming and other nuisance things. We do object to any more apartments being put in this unit, and the people that buy this place should be made to build garbage bins and to be made responsible for their tenants. We thought that the young girl last fall was dead, truly, and when the guy came out, she started screaming, and that went on for over an hour. We have grandchildren. We do not like when we have this stuff happening, and I do not trust them when things go on like this. I suffer from a brain aneurysm, brain tumor, and high anxiety, among other problems. It really upsets me to see this going on constantly. I do not want this to continue. Even the garbage this week was 32 bags. There are 4 apartments in there and a huge bull mastiff. I do not feel safe, and this is unacceptable. No, we are against any more apartments being added to 102 Deacon Street. Not at my health. I am very afraid of rats making their home around here because of their garbage. I am ashamed that this town allows this to go on. I have reported the garbage 2 times, and the garbage last fall was there over a month, and I could not even go and weed my flowers because of the putrid smell. They throw their garbage out the top windows. No, that is enough for us. Last week, 3 young lads out front. One jumps over the fence to Motherhill and tries to lift this huge pine branch like 15 feet long and throw it out on the highway. I told him to stop and go home, and he said, I live in that building. I told him not to throw that branch on the street, just laughed about it. Enough. Thank you, Michael and Brenda Hewer.
Have you received any other pieces of correspondence, pro or con?
No, there's been one phone call that I received from a lady on Laurier Street, but it was more of an information item, and she just was wondering if they were adding more. So no, she seemed satisfied once it was explained to her that the building was staying as is.
I think that's important because in the letter, which I received a copy from the Mr. and Mrs. Ewer, she makes reference to a 4-unit apartment when in actuality there's 5 units. So the thing is, there's not going to be any changes. What we're doing is really approving what has been a non-existing use for over 30 years, I guess. This is the way I see it. But now, perhaps, Mr. Jones, you would like to address the application and maybe some of the concerns expressed by Mr. and Mrs. Ewer.
Sure. If I was going to emphasize anything, it is the fact that we're talking about an existing use of a building. We're not talking about changing the use or expanding the use. My client has owned the property, I believe, going back to 1986. And from 1986 onwards, it's always been a 5-unit. I believe my client is looking to sell the property and the issue came up. And there is a letter on file, I think, with the city going back to 1979, acknowledging it as a legal non-conforming 4-unit back to 1979. My client says from the time she's owned it, and she thought since 75 it was a 5-unit, but certainly since 1986, it's been a 5-unit apartment. I'm guessing, and that's only a guess, and Ms. Soriel maybe can clarify, maybe the notice that the city sent out, if it included the application, it was talking about a 5-unit. I'm not sure if it talked about the letter acknowledging the 4-unit to a 5-unit, but it has been a 5-unit since at least 1986, and according to my client, since 1975. In terms of pending sale, so here's the deal. My client is marketing the property and looking to sell it. So a potential purchaser is looking at it and saying, okay, I see this letter from the city going back to 1979, acknowledging it as a legal non-conforming 4-unit. I've done a little research and I suppose I could, and it was presented as an option to my client, I could provide a legal opinion that it's got legal non-conforming use going back, to 1986 and passage of bylaws since then. But if you're a purchaser looking to buy a property, do you want Blair Jones's legal opinion that it's a 5-unit, or do you want the city of Pembroke to zone it, R4, so that there's no issue whatsoever? No purchaser said, hey, I need it to be rezoned. My client, in weighing her options, said, I like the idea of just making it legally what it's actually being used for. With respect to the letter, the complaint, when Mr. Hutton was reading it, the word I kept hearing over and over was garbage, 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 which I don't think is a zoning issue. I had a brief chat sometime about property standards. Maybe there's some attention that has to be paid to how garbage is dealt with at the property. That seemed to be the issue, and no additional units where there are no additional units, in fact, going to be added to the property. So what we're really trying to do is put in place something that when you look at the City of Pembroke zoning bylaw, it reflects what's actually on the ground there. That's really what we're trying to accomplish.
Thank you very much for clarifying a couple of those points. Questions from members of the board? Marie-Josée?
Sorry, Mr. Levasseur?
Yes?
Ms. Hewer is actually on the line. If she could just address the committee.
Yes, by all
Okay.
means.
Go ahead, Ms. Hewer.
Hello. My name is Brenda Hewer, and I appreciate what Mr. Jones is saying, but Mr. Jones doesn't live beside a building that has all this garbage constantly. He's not the one cleaning it up. And if somebody's going to buy it, something has to be done. This is the city. These people throw their garbage out the window. They had garbage there for over a month and a half last year. I had to call the city, and I am sick of it. I have grandchildren that couldn't even play out in the driveway with their bulb because we couldn't get past the smell. This is unacceptable for a city. We pay taxes. Like, unless somebody wants to come and live here that's talking, don't say it has to be taken care of. Either a bin has to be built or something. And police are here all the time. I mean, we don't want any more buildings in that apartment building because of what's going on now. Unless you live here beside this building, you don't know. That's all I'm saying. It has to be cleaned up because it's a dump. And I'm sick and tired of the smell, the people freaking out, the cops being there all the time. If somebody wants to buy that building and clean it up, fine. But still, something has to be done about it. And that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Ewer, for your opinion and for your presentation. The solicitor for the applicant did zero in on the fact that the concerns that seem to be not the fact that it's not the fact that there's not going to be any new apartments in it. It's just to make what has been a non-conforming use legal, and the garbage issue is certainly something that should be looked at, but it does fall outside of the jurisdiction of this particular committee with its recommendation. That does not mean that something could not be done.
I understand that. And I don't have a problem with somebody buying the building.
Yep.
But I have a problem with garbage.
Yeah, I understand that. Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Any questions by members of the board to the viewers?
I do.
Yes.
This is Marie-Josée. I want to say that I empathize with Mrs. Yours. It cannot be fun. As you said, Romeo, this is falling outside of the scope of this application, but I do have a question with regards to the rezoning. I understand that there's no intent to add additional units. I just want a confirmation from the planner that this rezoning does not kind of grant the right to more units than existing.
Jose, if it's approved, the zoning bylaw would say for a maximum of 5 units, up to a maximum of 5. So no more could be added without having to go through the rezoning process, which then would allow the neighbors to have more comments. But the land is so tight that there's no way any other units could be accommodated. They wouldn't have the proper parking. They wouldn't have enough area within the building to accommodate another unit anyway. But the bylaw would specifically say a maximum of 5 units.
Okay, thank you. And with regards to, so I guess the concern from Mr. and Mrs. Ewers is more of a civil matter.
Through you, it sounds like it's a property standards issue. We can ask that our bylaw enforcement officers go by there more often and make sure that the garbage is taken care of. Maybe it's something though as simple as Mr. Jones telling your client to build a garbage container containment area so that the garbage can be put in that area.
That concern will be relayed, and I'm sure my client will do, everybody wants to be a good neighbor and everybody wants to have good neighbors. So I'm sure my client will do what she can to improve the neighborly relations, talk to tenants to the extent she can to say, please be on your best behavior. But again, whether it's a single family, a duplex, triplex, whatever the case might be, some of us are going to be lucky enough to have good neighbors. Some of us are unfortunately going to have to put up with less than ideal neighbors. And I will relay to my client to do what she can to put people on their best behavior.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleen, a question to you. Can the Property Standards Committee ask them to build garbage bins, or is there any way that the city can ask them to build garbage bins?
Well, we could make it a condition of the zoning. That could be a condition. It could be if there is a property standards order. We've never really had them, it's more cleanup. It's not, we don't have the authority under the property standards bylaw to add a garbage container. Because there's no site plan agreement, we could add as a condition that a garbage container be built at 102 Deacon.
Yeah, like a garbage container for each of the apartments, designated for each of the apartments. Is that possible to do?
Well, I don't know how big it can be, and with the limited space on the property, but there'd have to be a garbage container that would accommodate all 5 units.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that information. Members of the board, any further comments or questions? No, looking for a mover and a seconder.
Well,
Motion.
Do we, so what are we moving, what are we voting on? Are we voting on the application as presented, or are we adding a condition?
You may add a condition if you wish.
I would like to add a condition.
And that condition would be?
Would be to build or provide a container for the garbage for the 5 units.
Okay, so the motion that we going to have to move on the amendment to the motion that was presented by the planner. So really now what we're doing is asking, so you're moving that we add the condition, which is an amendment to what was going to be the original motion. Looking for a seconder. Okay, Councillor Christine, and all in favor? All in favor, Christine?
I
Yes?
think
Yeah,
it's to do a recorded vote. All right.
that's a recorded vote. Okay, Marie-Josée?
Yes.
Yes, and I agree as well to give a majority of the committee. So we're now looking at a motion that is dealing with the presentation as done by the planner with the amendment section that the zoning bylaw is conditional that a garbage bins be built for each of the apartments, or a garbage bin that would hold the garbage for the apartment units. So do we have to have you to read that back to us, Owen? Or is it clear enough? I think we understand what we're saying, so I want to make sure that the motion's okay.
I believe we're clear, Mr. Levisser. Thank you.
Okay.
Could I interject just for
Now
a moment?
looking for a mover for the motion as amended. Well, one of you, Christine or Marie-Josée.
I
Okay.
will move the amendment.
Okay, you move. Yeah, that's the amendment. Now we're doing the motion with the amendment. So you're moving in and looking for a seconder.
That's me.
Christine. Okay, we'll put the motion to the group. All in favor, starting with Christine,
Yes.
Marie-Josée,
Yes.
and I will vote in favor. So, Mr. Jones, you can go back to your client saying that, as you know, this is an amendment, a zoning bylaw, so it's going to go before City Council on May 5th, 6 o'clock. You may wish to be there in order, in view of the fact there's a bit of an amendment that was placed. You may wish to be there or have a representative there. They'll be dealing with it at the May 5th meeting at City Council at 6 o'clock.
Perhaps between now and then, I'll deal with Ms. Soriel or perhaps Mr. Hutton, because we will have to iron out, there'll have to be a spirit of cooperation in terms of size, construction, location, the details as to how it's going to play out. In spirit, I'm not opposed to it, but practically speaking, there'll have to be some give and take and some discretion as to what this garbage disposal bin is going to look like and where it's going to be placed on the property.
That's a good point. Comments or response, Colleen?
Yes, I think the zoning bylaw itself, if it's approved on May 5th, it would just say that a garbage container would be required to accommodate for the 5 units. The details we'll get into like a little site plan. Then we can do that before as well, and look at location and size and things like that.
Okay. Is that satisfactory, Mr. Jones?
Yeah, I'll relay it to my client.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This ends this particular application. We'll then now go on to a 5th one, which is actually dealing with Mr. Jones's property. And
I've declared a conflict on that as well.
okay, let the minutes show that Board Member Tanya Stewart has declared a conflict on this particular application. And as in the previous one, I will vote during the recorded vote to make sure there's a majority of board members one way or the other. Okay, we'll ask Colleen then to present the next application, which is a zoning bylaw amendment application for 1064 Pembroke Street West.
Again, if there's anyone that's received a notice that would like to call in with concerns about this application for 1064 Pembroke Street West, please call in now at 613-735-6821, extension 1307. Just as an aside, we've received no written submissions. We had no telephone calls regarding this application. So the proposed official plan amendment would change the designation of the land municipally known as 1064 Pembroke Street West from a highway commercial designation to a residential designation. And the proposed zoning would change from a highway commercial -16 zone to an R2 zone. The applicant is proposing to redesignate and rezone the existing building to permit the building to be converted to a semi-detached dwelling house instead of an office building. The building was originally built as a semi-detached dwelling house, but if the zoning and the official plan amendment go through, there would be no commercial component at 1064 Pembroke Street West. The official plan to change it to residential means that it should be located in close proximity to schools, parks, shopping, and places of worship. It would be close to Jean Lajoie Elementary and Secondary School, as well as Holy Name Elementary School. It would be very close to Riverside Park and to the downtown and the West End Mall shopping areas. And it would be close to Holy Name Church. The official plan also states that the intent of the plan is to develop neighborhoods with a mix of housing types designated to meet a range of housing needs. Presently, within this area, there are existing residential uses within the same block as 1064 Pembroke Street West. The proposed development of converting the existing commercial building to a residential dwelling house containing 2 units would meet the intent of the official plan. The property is bounded to the north by existing commercial uses, the old red bargain barn and the red carpet barn. It is bounded to the south, east, and west by existing residential uses, so it would be compatible in the neighborhood. Based on the site plan provided, the lot area, lot frontage, lot depth, and all setback requirements conform to the zoning bylaw. There would be no addition proposed to the building. And the zoning bylaw requires 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit for a total of 4 parking spaces, and that can be accommodated at the property. The building is serviced by municipal water and sanitary sewer, and again, no addition would be proposed, only the interior would be altered to accommodate the semi-detached units. And the the application meets the intent of the provincial policy statement, so the planning department is recommending the approval of this rezoning.
Okay, haven't heard the presentation from the planner. Is there anything you would like to add, Mr. Jones?
I suppose I could, Mr. Leverser, you were taking a trip down memory lane earlier. I could perhaps do the same. So it's been 25 years we've been at that building. It was originally a semi-detached residential, and former partners of mine and I, we converted it to a law office. We had 25 great years there, but we've moved on. As you know, and the city was very helpful in allowing me to move on to the new location where I'm sitting now. But I do have a client buyer who's ready to return it back to what it was 26 years ago, which is what it was built to be, a side-by-side semi-detached. In all respects, it's a semi. It's got 2 hydrometers still, 2 water sewer connections. And it is flanked on 3 of the 4 fronts by residential dwellings, like single family, both side and in behind. So to take a trip down memory lane, it was a wonderful 25 years we had there as an office. But I'd like to put it back to what it was before, and let it be used for what I think it was intentionally intended to be used for.
Well, I don't want to comment, but it's like a housekeeping item right now. Anyways, any questions to Mr. Jones regarding this application, starting with Marie-Josée?
No questions.
Councillor Christine?
No, sorry about that.
No problem.
No questions. I just, I think it's a good good thing that we're doing. I mean, those types of properties are very desirable in the city, and nice to see it back to residential housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, looking for a motion to approve or disapprove this application. Moved by Marie-Josée, seconded by Councillor Christine. We'll now put the question. All in favor, Marie-Josée,
Yes.
Councillor Christine,
Yes.
and the chair, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, as you've heard with the others, this will be going before the, this is a recommendation from this committee to City Council. They'll be dealing with this application on May 5th at 8 o'clock thereafter. And as indicated by our planner earlier, one way or the other, you will get the decision through the mail within 15 days of the council's decision. And then there is that waiting period, which has been extended until COVID-19 is dealt with in one way or the other. Again, if you're planning some alterations or renovations, that's something that you can talk to our planner and building department to see what can be done ahead of time after a decision has been made. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your patience. You've been here as long as we have.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, the final application before us is from Mr. John Morrow at 304 Mackenzie Street. And Tanya, I believe that you've declared a conflict on this one as well.
Yes, I have.
Okay, I will ask the planner to present the application. Okay, Christine, not Christine, but Colleen, you're ready for the application?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
If anyone is that's received a notice in regards to 304 Mackenzie Street, and if they would like to call in, the phone number is 613-735-6821, extension 1307. The applicant, John Morrow, he is not on this evening on the Zoom because of his bandwidth issues. He lives out by La Paz, so he is available by phone should we request it. So the proposed rezoning, and sorry, we have had no written submissions, and we've had no telephone calls in regards to this particular application. The proposed rezoning would change the zoning of the land municipally known as 304 Mackenzie, and if approved, would be changed and addressed from 467 and 469 Elmira Street, from an R2-30 zone to an R2-14 zone. The applicant is proposing to rezone the vacant property to permit a semi-detached dwelling house with a reduced lot area, depth, front yard, and rear yards. The zoning bylaw zones the property as R2-30, which permits a single detached dwelling house at this address. So they would like to build a semi-detached. The official plan designates the property as residential, and again, it's in close proximity to schools. It's close to Bishop Smith High School. It's located next to Churchville Park. It's located close to the Pembroke Downtown Core, and it's located close to St. Luke's Anglican Church. The official plan also states the intent of the plan is to develop neighborhoods of a mix of housing types designed to meet a range of housing needs. Residential intensification is encouraged in the built-up areas of the city where there is sufficient existing or planned infrastructure to accommodate such a development. The property is mainly in a residential area with a mix of single, semi-detached townhouses and apartment developments of comparable scale. Therefore, this proposed use would be compatible in the area. The property is bounded to the north, south, east, and west by existing residential uses. According to the assessment map of the area, there are many existing 33-foot lots in this section of the city. In fact, the original approved underlying plan of subdivision for this land illustrated approximately 59 33-foot lots. Within the 400-foot circulation area, there are 26 existing 33-foot lots and 20 existing lots with frontages between 34 and 49 feet. Approximately half the properties had a frontage less than the required frontage. So there is a pattern of lots with reduced frontages in this area of the city. Thus, to establish a lot with a reduced lot area and lot frontage for semi-detached dwelling house would be compatible in the existing neighborhood. So relief is required from the lot area, lot depth, front yard depth, and rear yard. It exceeds the 30% landscaped open space. It can meet the required parking of 2 vehicles per unit, but the zoning bylaw requires a driveway width should not exceed 20 feet or 30% the width of the lot. And that means that the driveway widths could only be 13.08 feet. So relief is required to allow an 18-foot wide driveways in this location. It does meet the provincial policy statement, and the planning department is recommending the approval of this application.
Thank you very much, Colleen. Any questions from members of the board to Colleen regarding the presentation of this application? Marie-Josée, any questions?
No, no questions.
And Councillor Christine? No, no questions. Okay, I haven't got any. And basically what we're doing here is that that's a nice piece of property, nice lot. I went up to see it, and so instead of having one unit, we're going to have 2 units put on it with some slight ramifications, which of course, as you said, basically is supported by the Planning Act that we can do. Okay, looking for someone to move a motion in approval of this application. Christine, seconder. Marie-Josée. Okay, now we'll put the question to the board. Marie-Josée, in favor, yes or no?
Yes.
Councillor Christine?
Yes.
And I, as the chair, will vote yes. So this particular application has not been approved, and like the others, if Mr. Morrow is listening, I'm sure you'll contact him, make him aware that this is a recommending body and we'll be recommending it to City Council, and they will be dealing with it on May 5th at 6 o'clock. Anything else required? Okay, I guess we've completed. Thank you very much for, which has been really 2 meetings in one. And we'll go on to item number 6, past decision update. And perhaps you could give us an update, Colleen, on the property at 460 Dominion Street that was dealt with 2 months ago.
That's
Colleen?
right. Okay, and that was in regards to severances, so that each of the 3 townhouse units could be individually sold, and then there was relief required from the middle one for lot frontage. That was all approved, and the appeal date has passed, and so now they are final.
Okay, thank you very much. Going on to the next meeting, we have Colleen, comment?
Yes, I was wondering if we could change it to Wednesday, May 27th. We do have another rezoning, and it just gives us a little bit of extra time if we can have it on the 27th of May.
No problem. I don't think too many of us are going anywhere.
No.
Okay, 27th it is. Okay, before I ask for an adjournment, Owen, is there anything you want from us or will require?
I will be around, if it's all right with all of you, tomorrow morning with decisions for your signatures. So I'll be in touch just to arrange that with you guys tomorrow morning. It's only for 2 of the files, so but we'll get that done and out of the way if that's okay.
Okay, very good. I have no problem with that. Tanya? Is that okay?
I do have to go into the office at one point to close a real estate deal, so I will email you my cell phone. So you can contact me because I won't be on the computer all day to make sure I am here, or if I'm at the office whenever you're ready to go out. I'm not sure when I'll be going in. It depends when my stuff comes in for that.
That's great. I'm not worried,
Okay,
so I'll be in touch with you guys.
Good enough. Marie-Josée, you'll be available?
I'll be available all day tomorrow.
And Councillor Christine, you'll be available?
I'm available, thank you.
Okay, and I'll be here too. I'll be roaming around in the backyard or something. Oh, it's raining tomorrow, so maybe I'll be watching movies.
Maybe you'll be shaving.
Thank you very much. Looking for an adjournment. Moved by Tanya, seconded by Councillor Christine. All in favor, indicate aye.
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 Okay. Thank you very much, Owen.
Just to make sure that I go in the minutes as Sadamore and not Stuart Owen.
Yeah, I got you, Tanya.
I haven't been called that in 20 years.
Very good. Okay. Anything else before we sign off, Colleen?
No, that's all. Thank you very much. This is
Thanks.
our
Thank you
first
very much.
virtual meeting, and I think it was a success. Thank you very much. Take care.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.